attend are starting to jump in. So
Perfect.
should we go ahead and get started, everybody? Everybody ready? Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to 4 QuickBooks Firms, how to optimize your cybersecurity without going crazy. So today, I am joined by Andrew. Andrew, how you doing?
Hey, Chris, doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And, welcome to everybody else that's on the webinar today.
Cool. For everybody who hasn't met Andrew yet, he's the CEO of Tech for Accountants. So, and just a brief bit about me. My name is Chris. I'm a CPA. I'm one of the founders here at Liscio. And I spent probably the first 12 to 14 years in finance and accounting before getting into technology. So I'm really excited to share some ideas with Andrew today in terms of what's happening in and around the profession. So let's dig in, shall we? All right. So let's start with the headline news. This is something that if you've been out in the insurance market anytime in the last year or so, what have we seen? We've seen that cyber insurance premiums have absolutely positively skyrocketed. So this is all driven by the number of attacks and then actually the fact that the attacks have been much more successful at scale than in the past. And we've seen that cyber insurance has gone from the third most expensive tier of insurance for accountants to the most expensive insurance if you can get it. So cyber insurance companies are seeing a dramatic rise in claims because of the success the bad guys have been having. And the question, I guess, is how can we reverse this trend, right? Nobody wants to be breached. We don't want premiums to go up. We certainly want to safeguard all of our client data. How are we going to do that, right? How are we going to do that? So if we think about what's been happening for the last several years, and we consider what the IRS has been doing, they've been banging the drum year after year after year. They put out their Dirty Dozen list. They listen to what the NIST is saying. They put out their publications. And probably one of the most interesting pieces is the culmination of so much of what they've been seeing in terms of phishing attacks, the success and so forth, that's been accelerating year on year, is they put out IRS Pub 4557, which is really a pretty important step for raising attention and getting people to pay more of their more of their share of mind to go ahead and safeguard their clients' information. So a couple pieces here right out of 4557. If you collect information online directly from customers, make secure transmission automatic. Make secure transmission automatic. So we're not talking about forcing your clients to encrypt when sending to you and you're having to encrypt when sending to them, right? How do you make it super, super easy? Caution customers against transmitting sensitive data like account numbers via email or in response to an unsolicited email or pop-up message. Hard to train all of our clients, right? Point number 2 here, if you must transmit sensitive data by email over the internet, be sure to encrypt the data. So IRS suggestion, rather than using email, transmit files via secure file transfer protocol. This is really, really hard to get customers in the habit, right? And raise your hand if you're out there, if you have EINs or SSNs or other kinds of sensitive personal or financial information in your email account today. Right, just about everybody's hand goes up. So the question then becomes, how the heck do we comply? And that's why we have Andrew here today, because people have real questions about all this. This is something that we pulled off of Reddit, I believe. PTIN renewal and data security attestation. This is from the person who will remain anonymous. You can probably go out and look at them, see who they are. But he wrote, I just learned recently that when we sign up or renew our PTIN, we are attesting that we have a data security plan and all that. I mean, of course we do, right? I'll skip to the second paragraph here. But what I also learned is that the data security plan required by the IRS might be a bit more robust than what many of us were thinking. First of all, it must be written and based on Pub 4557, of which I just showed you about 2 out of 50 to 100 points, right? And there's a document called Small Business Information Security, the Fundamentals, from the NIST, which is really the standards body that the US government listens to, right? So we start to think about this. This isn't just a make it up as you go along. There's actually a lot of detail under here. There's a lot of detail under here that as small business owners, it's not easy to get our hands around all this stuff without having a team. So the question then becomes, what do we need to know about? Are there shortcuts we can use? What can we do today from a practical standpoint to make meaningful steps to getting where we want to be on our behalf and on behalf of all the clients for which we have a fiduciary duty? So how do you lower your risk without going crazy? So our agenda today, a few reasons to pay attention. We've covered those. Understanding how cyber attacks happen. We have Andrew here for that. Unpacking the problems with email, evaluating our risk profile, and then what are those practical steps? And can we give you some guidelines and some punch lists, if you will, to really get going on this line of thinking? So let's talk about how cyber attacks happen. Andrew, I think this is going to be an area where you are the pro here. I'd love to kind of defer to you on a lot of this stuff, but can we kind of go through what's happening in the profession, what's happening in the industry, and start there?
Yeah, well, the big thing that you need to kind of keep in mind with all of this, and I love the quick fact number one, that criminals are targeting firms of all sizes. And one of the biggest things that we hear from a lot of people is, well, my firm's too small, they're not going to target me. I only have a couple hundred clients or a couple dozen clients. We're just a small mom and pop. No one's going to go after us. And maybe they won't go after you in, say, a spear phishing attempt, which is basically I am going to pretend that I work for Licio, right? And instead of an I, it's a 1, and reverse engineer sending emails from Chris@Licio.com, and the I is a 1, and phishing in that sense. But if you have an email address and you're an accountant, you have lots and lots of very sensitive data. So they can put together just a very simple email, which is where a lot of the entryways, over 90% of breaches, come from the email. So just law of averages, you have 100,000 accountants' emails, and you send a virus to 100,000 of them. If 0.01% click on it, you're gold. You have made a killing off of the information that's been stolen. And I mean, not saying, you should do this, but I mean, if you just think law of averages, right? So, anybody can be in that list of 100,000. It's not, well, here's 100,000, but don't worry. We filtered out mom and pops because they're too small for you to worry about sending a mass email to, and so kind of the mindset that we need to shift is less of the who is going to attack me, and realize that this isn't a one-off, I'm going for you. It is, I'm sending a mass thing to everybody, and so many people, they will click on these things and let someone in the computer. And another thing we hear a lot of is, well, I've never had a breach. I've been in business for 20 years. It's never happened. So, I don't really need to worry about this stuff. I've got great security. And kind of 2 points to that is, one, explain to me how you know this, right? Like if somebody breached you, do you think they would put a pop-up on your computer, say, by the way, I'm stealing your client's data. Now it's time for you to get me out? Or would they just take it? Be clandestine about it, because that's the long game. If you're in there and always getting new updated information, why would they try to get themselves out? And then, so the idea, it'll never happen to me, say it hadn't happened to you. Would it happening one time be a good amount of times? It's kind of like the seatbelt analogy. Well, I don't really get in car accidents, so I don't really need a seatbelt. I'm not the kind of person that gets in car accidents. And, how many car accidents would it turn into for it to be a good idea to have these preventative safeguards in place? So if we're changing the conversation from the I get hacked, now what do I do, which is an absolute catastrophe, how can we prevent this to begin with? And that's really where the attention needs to be, is in identifying these things to begin with. And if you just don't open the email and you don't get hacked, and I mean, this is, very, very high level. I know if there's IT people here, they're like, but what about that? But, high level, if you don't open the email and you don't get breached, then you just keep living your life. But most people are opening these emails and they're very convincing. I got one the other day that, I'm so paranoid about every email I get, but I got one the other day and I forwarded it to my assistant just saying, like, look how good this is. It almost got me, except for it made no sense. It was closing documents. And it's like, well, I'm not closing on a house, but like everything about it other than the time made absolutely no sense. They just did it, everything perfectly. Very smart people. If they were dumb people, they wouldn't be able to pull this off. But, so identifying the causes that a lot of these are coming from email, a lot of them are coming from just a mass phishing. Send out an email to 100,000 people. Someone's going to click on it. Someone's going to fall for it. And just how do you make it not you? And Norton's not going to stop this. It's not going to be, well, my computer's got great security or I have a great IT person. It all starts with don't let them in to begin with, and it'll make things a lot easier for you. I think are some of the high level things.
Yeah, something, they just think it's indiscriminate. And I love the analogy you made with regard to wearing a seatbelt, right? The IRS is basically saying with Pub 45, 57, everything else we're doing, buckle up. It's a good idea, right? I think when you talk about the numbers, right, for every email that gets sent out, some number are going to get opened. If you look at it and why cybersecurity insurance rates are skyrocketing, it's because they are, in fact, over these longer timescales, so successful. Do you have a sense for, how many firms or what percentage of firms have had a cybersecurity incident?
It's some crazy number. It's something like it's like 1 in 2 at some point, or maybe it's 1 in 4. It's a gigantic number that will experience a data breach of some sort from year 1 till when they retire. And just with numbers like that, and we've seen it, big 4, we've seen people getting data breaches, and people will say, well, they're big 4, they're a target, da da da. We also see mom and pops. It's like, oh, well, they're small, they're dumb. We see mid-size, we see it happen to everybody. So the piece that just really needs to get drilled in is, be cautious about what you're getting, especially, tax season. You're getting so many things from so many different places. If you're not using a centralized way of doing it, okay, client took some pictures and shot it to you on Facebook Messenger and said, well, here's my W-2, take my social security number. And, and you're trying to organize all this stuff, and it's coming from so many different directions. And, your firm's getting bigger. You don't know every client's name seems right. Oh, here's the documents so-and-so asked for, click here to download. Here's the attachment, and email is just so vulnerable. And even though there's so many good lines of protection out there, it's just like you have great security on your house, but if you just keep opening the front door, it doesn't matter that you've got sharks with lasers on them in a moat surrounding the house. You keep opening the door and letting people in. That's where the problem is. And so people, they give too much credit to the software companies, the MSP behind it, or cybersecurity, or having a pen test done. All these things, it really starts with the user.
Yeah, we saw one last week where we were talking to a firm, and one of their clients had been clicking on links. So it wasn't even the firm, it was a client. The client was clicking on links. Their email was compromised. The bad guys got into their email, saw that they had an accountant, and started making requests from the accountant. So the name was right, the email address was right, everything was right. But the content, what they're asking for, was quite nefarious. So let's talk about some other nefarious acts. And this is stuff, I know you've mentioned phishing already here, Andrew, but if we can go through some of the other common forms of cyber attacks.
Yeah, so malware is kind of like the umbrella of everything that you click on where something goes wrong. So the dangerous anything, most people, they'll use malware and virus interchangeably. It's kind of correct, but malware, at least in like the IT world, it's like the umbrella of all things that you click on that does something malicious to the system. And ransomware, now it's been around now for 9-10 years, but it's kind of brilliant. Back in the day, you'd get a virus on the computer, you get a pop-up, it's annoying, the computer's slow, I got a virus, I have to hire an IT person to get this virus off because it's very annoying, or I have to buy a new computer because the virus on my old computer was so bad. But with ransomware, what they're doing, it's still a virus and you still would need to remove it, but the damage that comes from it, basically it takes everything on your computer and encrypts it. And so what that means is, unless you have a way to decrypt those files, you can get the virus out. Okay. And now you're stuck with all these files that you can't read, you can't open, and you get a nice pop-up saying, send us X $1,000 in Bitcoin, and we will unlock your files. And so holding the files ransom, what these hackers have discovered is there's way more money in ransom than there is where we'd see 10 years ago, where you'd get a pop-up and it's download driver fixer 5,000. A lot of stuff is snake oil. Okay, $50. I downloaded this thing that an IT person would have said not download it, but okay, it's $50. Okay, you got me. My computer's slow, it's annoying. But now it's like, okay, every Word document, every Excel sheet, every PDF, you can't open those anymore until you give me $5,000. And that's a low number. I just pulled that out of the air. But I think they had one that was over 1 million recently, if I'm not mistaken. I know municipality near us had one for $600,000. It's crazy. So phishing, back to that law of averages, send it out to 100,000 people. Someone's going to click on it. So if you think of it, fishing with an F, you put the bait on the hook, put it in the water, you wait for a bite, reel it in. You don't have to catch every single fish that's in there. You're just looking to catch one. And so that's how these things work with the law of averages. And then man in the middle, what we're seeing here, and I was actually just in Mexico last week. And I mean, I'm just so paranoid with everything I do. I just no internet because everything was just so insecure. And it's like, it's probably just a culture thing, but like my IT brain just won't let myself connect to them. But basically what someone could do, say go to an airport, create a fake hotspot, but call it airport Wi-Fi. And, people are waiting in line, check out, customs, getting their bags. It's early in the morning. Oh, I need Wi-Fi. There's airport Wi-Fi. Click on it. You're connected. And so that person's in the middle and can see everything that's being transmitted that's not encrypted. And then the password attack, when everyone is very familiar with having a secure password, and most people, well, I'd like to say most people, there are people that do not use the passwords 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 A B C D F G Q W E R T Y, like the really obvious ones. People are still using them today. But if your password's easy, or say you use the same password on multiple websites and say something stupid, right? You have like a Nickelodeon.com password. You have the same email password combination that you use on Bank of America. Say Nickelodeon has a data breach. Oh no, you got my Nickelodeon account. Like I don't care. But that same username password works on Bank of America. So now we have a big problem because that password's been, and it's not even your fault that any of this happened except for reusing a weak password. And so these are some of the things people don't really think about. And the unfortunate truth of my world is these are the things that I see so often. You know, the names have been changed to protect the innocent, but it happens every single day. And the people on the other side are not just, oh man, I guess I'll be more careful next time. It's, well, my bank account has been emptied. So now what?
So we got a lot of different ways this can happen. Some things are going to manifest immediately. Ransomware might manifest immediately. Bank account, bank withdrawal might manifest immediately. If they're tracking, if they're going in there, looking, seeing what's going on, getting a lay of the land, or maybe just pulling out sensitive information that we don't as accountants see. How do we know if we've been breached? You know, when people come to you who have been breached, you know, what are they saying? What are you seeing?
Yeah, the most common one we'll see is, you know, they're doing a return and it says it's already been filed. That's usually a gigantic red flag. If it's that's usually like the biggest one of this doesn't make sense. And I know it wasn't me. Somebody did it. So there's only a handful of things that could be leading to this. Yeah, the ransomware notice. I mean, when nothing works on your computer and you get a pop-up saying pay this ransom in Bitcoin, it's a pretty obvious one. And what they'll do, it actually not all the time it happen immediately. It won't be you clicked the file and now you get the ransomware. It can sit in there for a while undetected because a lot of backups will only go out, you know, 1 day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks. So they wait a while for it to deploy. So it seems like everything's been fine for a month or two, sitting undetected. Then it goes, you try to deploy the backup, but you don't have a clean backup anymore because it's been there all along. So that's something that we've also seen, and it makes it hard on like the IT forensic side of, okay, this just happened today. What happened? And it's like, I showed up to work and this was on my computer. I hadn't clicked anything yet. So we've seen that as well. The number of returns filed exceeding the number that your PTINs actually filed is also another one that, you know, if you've got a good grip on how many you've submitted, but, you know, it's one of those, are you paying attention to it? Does it seem close enough? Yeah, if you know that you've done 100 and it says that you filed 500, then it's like, okay, something is clearly wrong. Or if you see in your tax software, you know, when the return was filed, and if you hadn't done that person's return yet, but it says last edited 6 a.m. today, it's like, well, I didn't do that at 6 a.m. today. Those are some of the things that people they'll notice. And, you know, as soon as you notice, that's really when it needs to be brought to whoever is in charge of watching that stuff. Like, the sooner the better. Even if it's, we got someone the other day emailing me asking, is this legitimate? And it just was a legitimate email, but it was like, thank you for asking, instead of just, and they actually did need to do an action with it. So it's like, if they ignored it, it wouldn't have been the right move. But just asking, is this real? Yes.
It's a detailed game. So while we talk about email for a little bit, and also just to make sure we have it, I know we get questions about this, but you mentioned backups and the fact that backups are sometimes getting compromised because the bad guys are getting smarter. We're going to have to talk about that more in a little bit when we get to some of how we combat and make sure we can remediate issues if anything arises. I'm super fascinated there. All right, so let's talk about issues with email. So I think, you know, one of the big deals is, we've been talking about this quite a bit, so this idea that phishing is just quite common, right? We know from last year, 83% of all organizations reported having some sort of phishing activity in and around them. I think professional services on the accounting side is probably closer to 1 out of 1. You also mentioned earlier, Andrew, that 90% of data breaches start with phishing. 90%. So it seems like the most obvious hole to plug would be this one, in line with NIST, in line with IRS Pub 4557, in line with what you are all seeing. And I think there's this idea that these phishing emails are coming in and a high percentage of them are being opened. You think like, hey, what about spam filters or, et cetera? Maybe they're kind of ending up there, but a lot of the stuff is getting through apparently. So, can you tell us about what else you're seeing with regard to phishing, things that have been successful or other stories you have in and around how firms that have come to you have gotten in, maybe perhaps up a little bit upside down?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of times when we're onboarding a new client is usually where like the horror stories come out. Like we have experienced a data breach and now need a professional to come in and tell us what we should have been doing all along, that we now it's too late. But so we talked about the phishing emails of sending it to the masses and someone's going to click on it, and some of them you look at it, I mean, again, like I obviously have a different point of view on it, being on the security side and seeing all these things day in and day out. But some of them are extremely sophisticated. Like you had said that you had the client that was compromised asking for information from their accountant. We saw once is a title company had been hacked, and what the hacker did, which I mean, it was brilliant. It's terrible, but it's brilliant. What they did was they set up an email rule that when the title company sent out an email titled wiring instructions, they delete that email and send their copy of wiring instructions. So they have a PDF. Everything is exactly the same, coming from the right person. And the only thing that is different is the SWIFT number, routing, bank, where the escrow money is to be sent. And how do you even guard against that, right? If they called the title company and said, "Did you send me wire instructions?" Yes. I mean, you'd have to go line by line, number by number, confirming that the information that they had requested and received when they received it, sent from somebody that was like, yeah, I did just send it. Like how sophisticated these things really can be. And, that's just an example that I had witnessed firsthand, but you could take that exact same example and, a request for documents from your clients and actually sending that, if they're doing it through email, which, we've established shouldn't, but it still happens. I mean, we see a lot of the people that we work with up front. I had asked my team that's on the front lines, how many people have good security when they're coming to us, how many accountants, and every person's answer was 10% of that. 10% of good enough security would be a generous number. So we're talking over 90% have what we'd consider bad.
It's interesting. We received a wire from a third party not so long ago. And when we got the wire, when they were going, before they sent it, they called me and said, "What is your account information?" I said, "Well, I already sent it to you." They said, "Well, I want to confirm it number by number." And we went through every single number on it before they sent the wire, which is really telling. I'm wondering if they had an issue before, because it's so much deeper than you would normally do, right?
Right.
It's kind of one of those deals.
Yeah, we had an NDA there, but
yeah, it's like, okay, I get it. I get it now. So let's talk about the profession for a second then, because I think when we think about what's happening in accounting, it's one of those deals where, as a profession, so much what we do has an email component. If you want to get something signed, you send something through, you pick the software, DocuSign, HelloSign, anything. It sends an email. If we want to send a portal component, right? What does it do? It sends an email, right? If we want to get paid, we might send an email. So much what we do as a profession and all the back and forth, how much of it happens in email? And so this might be, I think we might make a good argument that attorneys do a lot of this too, but they don't do it to the same extent that accountants do, right? As you know, as the guardians of all this great financial information, personal information, et cetera, the profession by and large has stuck to email and links within email. And think about what's happening in banking, right? Anytime we do anything with a bank, banks aren't doing this. Our wealth managers not doing this, right? They're giving us logins directly to and access directly to great tools that are happening that are inherently much more secure than email. Accountants are really here. And so when we think about that, it really has a lot to do with the risk profile that we are absorbing as a profession, right? If we're sitting in email, you know, we are putting ourselves in a position where, look, we're much more open to human error, right? Our clients might be opening or clicking on links thinking it's us. We might be clicking on links thinking it's our clients. A lot of the back and forth of what's happening here might or might not be, in fact, with the party whom we think we're interacting with. It's a two-sided problem, right? And so if we think about it, 97% of users fail to identify phishing emails. I mean, 3% of us are getting it right every single time. But to your point, Andrew, if there's some percentage of something getting through at the right time, meaning, hey, look, I am refinancing my house, and just as I'm doing that, I got something from something that looked like it might be related to refinance. Maybe they get me at that one moment in time when I actually am in that window. Most of the time, I'll ignore it. But can we be 100% accurate all the time? I think the bad guys are venturing that we cannot be 100% accurate forever, right? We will eventually have a moment of weakness, right? So, you know, how do we go from being really quite vulnerable to having our acts totally together, not just as business owners and so forth, but as organizations where everybody in the company is strong, is holding the line, is not clicking on email links, et cetera. Can we talk a little bit about what you're seeing, what you're doing with your firms?
Yeah, so having the healthy habits, right? The knee-jerk reaction of, if I see something, am I clicking on it because you never know, it might be important? Or do we get that kind of built-in filter of, I see something and, you know, this isn't really something that I requested, something looks suspicious. So, I mean, for someone like myself, and I mean, you know, we are the keepers of the keepers, right? Because so many of our clients are accountants. You know, with the name Tech for Accountants, wouldn't you know, like a lot of our clients are accountants. We just get like offhanded referrals where they're like, you can do other industries too, right? Like, we really like you. Those are like our non-accountant clients. But you know, what we have in our own company and what we have for our clients to adapt is, if you weren't looking for it, then just don't open it, ignore it, delete it, mark as read. But you don't have to open it to find out what's inside. And just our general rule of thumb, if something, you know, if I get an email from Chris at Liscio and it seems suspicious, I could reach out to you, not through a reply, but just reach out to you directly. Was this from you? Or I could call, or, you know, setting up a way that you skip the email portion of it. So, you know, you need to reset your Office 365 password. Click here to change your password. And well, you could also just go to Office 365 and see if they ask you on the website that you chose to go to, if they're asking you to reset it. So it's really important that you take the wheel when it comes to these things, because there's just so many things that can go wrong. And it's just, if it happens one time, you just don't want to be in that spot. Like I wish I had only heard through the grapevine of what these things look like, but it can be really, really bad.
Got a question for you. So we came across a firm. They had an incident, and what they did was they made it a practice. Even they don't use email nearly as much as they used to, but clients will still send things sometimes over email. Right? I think everybody, again, go back to how many accountants have sensitive information in email boxes? Everybody, pretty much. But what they've done is they take an interesting step, which is they made it a firm practice to delete their emails, particularly ones that have sensitive information. It's going there, they're constantly deleting. And so it's killing the email record, obviously. But when the bad guys get in, the bad guys start to look, at least in their case, the bad guys went through and started to basically grab all of the sensitive financial information, tax IDs, etc., from their email accounts to go ahead and file fraudulent returns and that kind of thing. Have you seen anything like that? Is that an extreme case?
I haven't personally seen that firsthand, but that it makes a lot of sense, right? Like a lot of the like ingenious, terrible ideas are simple, and that does, I and I don't know. It's like, it's good that I have not seen this particular monster happen, but the concept of you have a lot of sensitive information in your email, and if somebody gets access to your email, and it's something that your email is so sensitive and has so many keys to so many different things. And I think people just kind of, they look at it just in the sense of, oh, you want to see like what my client said to me about their weekend getaway, have a blast. Like, my life's not that interesting. And it's like, okay, maybe your life isn't that interesting. However, QuickBooks Online, click reset password. What email address should we reset that password to? Oh, the one you have access to. All of your password resets all go into the inbox. So it's a very, 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 it's underrated how important it is to protect just your email in general. But if we're going through, and that's a practice I actually hadn't heard of, the deleting the files. I could see the double-edged sword there, right? It's like you actually need something and it's not there, but if somebody gets in, it's also not there for them. And how many times do you need to go back and find something from, and whatever their policy is, like a year, or do you recall? Yes.
No, they obviously had a very particularly painful experience with what happened with the compromised information. And I think, everybody knows when this happens, the disclosure requirements are significant. You have to go to the state, or in this case, multiple states that are involved, because every jurisdiction has a different disclosure requirement. And so you have to go through all the forensic stuff, all the disclosure stuff, going back to all your clients, explaining it to them, working with the IRS, et cetera. There's an awful lot of stuff that has to be done after the fact. It's not just like, oh, hey, we had this and it just goes away magically. There's just a very, very long tail. So having gone through that whole long tail, the idea was, look, we can either do that again, potentially do that again. And the realization was, we're not going to be perfect inside the firm at keeping the bad guys out. This is potentially something, if somebody hasn't had their morning coffee, they might click on the wrong thing. We might have the same experience. We've got to be incredibly diligent around making sure that the sensitive information remains in places that are very, very, very difficult to get to, right? And it also means MFA on everything. It means, sensitive information only lives in a small number of places instead of scattered across multiple places. And I think when you look at the threat matrix, right, stuff can come from anywhere. Any account can be breached. And a lot of firms have information in 20 different places, inside of text messages, inside of email, and that's an email at every person's desk, all separate, silos that need to be protected. Inside of document signature solutions, inside of tax software, inside of financial software, inside of portals or back office storage, right? There's just so many places. So what they're trying to do is condense those down into fewer and fewer places that they can harden the security around. And I think that kind of brings us into this next piece here, Andrew, which is when we think about, how to design and how to think about what we're doing the right way, it probably starts with having really a security audit in place, right? Maybe that's something you can kind of talk about. Do we know where everything is? Do we know how, are we doing the right things to safeguard the information and so forth? Can you walk us through some of that criteria and what you're seeing and doing with firms?
Yeah, like you had said, a lot of firms have so much different information in so many different places. And a lot of that just comes on the business operations side of letting clients just sort of get you the information however, whenever, whatever they think is okay. And, your clients, they are going to be one of the worst when it comes to having security. And they say, oh, if someone wants to take my information, like, let them. Like, I don't have two pennies I can rub together or something. People, everyone just, they have this really skewed vision of what can and can't happen. And regardless, so when we go in and perform these audits, what we're looking for is, where is this information housed? And the best way to go about it is having a centralized location that is just on super lockdown. If you're doing online banking, for instance, you have the one website and maybe the mobile app. But that is how you can access it. There aren't really other options because the bank has laid out, here is where you can get the information, and you have to do it all in this secured environment. So, but what we see is, well, my client, they texted it to me, and then I took a screenshot on my phone, and then I texted it to my son-in-law because he's good with computers. So then he printed it, and then he put it in my scanner. And then when I scan it, and then I upload it to the cloud, and then I download it from the cloud because I don't trust it. And I put it on a flash drive, and I always back it up, except for I forget to back it up. And I don't know if it were, and it's in 70 different places, this same piece of information, instead of just consolidating it and keeping it in one spot. So first thing we have to do is identify all of the different places where it can come. And yes, okay, it's convenient for my non-tech savvy clients to do it this way that is extremely not secure, but I can at least maybe get the documents. But it's really important to have just the process and let your clients know, here's how to do it. Teach them on how to do it. And it's back to the bank example, doing check deposit through your phone. There's only one way to do that. You can't take a picture of the check with your phone and then text it to somebody, and then there's one way to do it, and that is the only way that it will work. So consolidating and having strong security is a really smart thing to do. Going through the staff training and getting everybody on the same page that's inside your organization is also very important. Having these standardized routines that everybody follows, because they're working with Joe one day and he says, oh yeah, text it to me, like, don't worry, I'll handle it for you. I've got this, I've got your back. And the client, they're looking at it from, thank you for making this convenient for me. But what's really happening is opening up all these potential security risks that nobody's taking into consideration, because these things usually don't happen immediately in real time. It's not client texted you their W-2 and then you had a data breach because they texted you that W-2. Like, down the road, maybe something somewhere happens, but you don't get that immediate pushback and pain of it not working. So getting your staff, everybody trained in, here's what to look out for. Here is how we do things. Here is how we keep this secured for our clients' benefit and just on the operations side, if everybody does things the same way, then it's going to make everything easier when you have a united front. It's like if you've got kids and it's like the one kid asks mom and she says no, and then the kid asks me and I say yes. And it's like, well, dad said yes. It's like, I'm always the bad guy. Not in cybersecurity though. But looking at the network logs, just following along in this and seeing which employees have proper permission, proper access. This is another thing that we see a lot in firms that we work with, is that just, and say it's a firm, they've got 5 employees, right? Small firm, they're like family. Everybody's been there for years. Everybody trusts everybody. You can watch my children. You can do whatever you want. Like, these people will be with me until the end of time. So everybody gets full admin access. I trust them. It's been this way for years. And we haven't had a single problem. Again, we're coming back to that seatbelt analogy of, does everybody need access to everything? And the answer is no. But it's a lot easier to just say, I just leave every house or every door and window in my house unlocked. So that way, if I'm locked out, it's so easy for me to get in, but it's easy for everybody else as well. So identifying the proper access for the employees to have, having the proper procedures in place, having your clients understand, here is how we protect your data. These are all for the client's benefit as well. Nobody wants to be the accountant that's hacked and then has to disclose to their clients what happened and have to pay for credit monitoring for all their clients. And then if you've got clients in New York or California or Connecticut, then you've got, or Massachusetts, then you've got even more just hoops and things to jump through. Like, it is a nightmare and a half. So identifying the vulnerabilities, and this is where, and a good IT team can help you with keeping things up to date. I mean, how often we see, we've gone in and replaced other IT companies, and just look at just Windows updates, which, it should be happening pretty frequently. Like, there's a use case for not doing it every patch Tuesday, but in general, it should be happening pretty frequently. And I'll go into some, and it's like, the computer hasn't been updated in 3 years. Why? Like, on the IT side, it's not insanely difficult to do that. It's just, you should have tools that alert you when this stuff happens. But having a good IT team is also, that's always going to be very beneficial if some of the stuff is just, so over your head. So, we're identifying all the silos where information is stored. We're making sure that the proper protections in place. So you had mentioned earlier the 2-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. That is hands down. It's annoying. I don't like it either. But if everything has 2FA on it, you're stopping so many of these problems from happening. And it blows my mind. There's tax software out there that doesn't have 2-factor authentication. It's like, it's required by the IRS. And there's actual tax software, popular tax software, I might add, that doesn't have it as a feature, which just blew my mind the first time I saw it. My tech was like, what do I do if it doesn't have 2-factor authentication? We're making them compliant with Pub 4557. And it's like, they have 2FA. They have to have 2FA. It's impossible they don't. And nope.
Amazing. Well, I think everybody wants easy, right? Let's get to the point where, we've got through a lot of the bits, and there's a lot of stuff here to unpack. I think, we work with a lot of firms jointly. I think a lot of our clients are clients of yours. And one of the things that everybody wants is, hey, there's a lot here. I could spend a lot of time personally trying to get up to speed and keep up with this. Or maybe there might be a shortcut. And I think you've done something that's really tremendous for the profession, which is offer a great shortcut, right? I made it easy.
Yeah. So going to taxforaccountants.net, and there's a bunch of different locations, but the book and IT audit page works as well. and we can go through and do an assessment for your firm and just let you know where you stand. And even if you have an IT person and just want a second set of eyes, I mean, me personally, I had an accountant that I thought was the best accountant in the world until things hit the fan, and then we went our separate ways, and I had somebody else look at the past returns. And one of the questions that a third party audit had asked me, he said, was your accountant in a bad car accident in 2017? And I said, what kind of question is that? He's like, that's the only explanation I can come up with for how bad of a job that he did on this return.
Oh,
Now,
no.
me as the IT guy, I hired an accountant because I thought he knew what he was doing, and I don't have the qualifications to be able to determine if what he's telling me is accurate or not. Like, I take his word for it. I like him. I see him pretty frequently. Like, hey, how's it going? How's the family? I like you. But that's all I really had to go off of. So, with this audit, it's the same thing that I wish I had done with my own accountant, is have somebody on the outside just look at it. And, we'll tell you, okay, most of the time, I'll be honest, most companies, unless they are tech for accountants, and not saying we're this like super special thing, but most IT companies are not going to be going through with a fine tooth comb, checking all the boxes in Pub 4557 or 1075 or the NIST, the FTC safeguards rules. Like, that is what we specifically do all day, every day. So
Makes great sense. You made it easy. So just go to the website and go to book-and-it-audit. Made it super easy. I think for those of you who want to start taking steps on your own, just, immediately, we have a couple ideas for you that's probably worth doing a quick rundown through. So please screenshot this or email us later if you want these pieces. But we do spend a lot of time with firms who are looking for immediate gains just to get started, get things going. And this is a top 10 list from Brian Johnson. Brian's one of our advisors here at Listio. He's a well-known chief information security officer. I've been working mostly throughout his career with public companies, Uber, Netflix, Lending Club, etc. And he gave us this top 10 list. I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to do a quick rundown here. But obviously, number one, antivirus on all systems. Do you have it? Is it on every single computer in the company? Two, Andrew mentioned this earlier, password managers. We can't be reusing passwords, right? That practice needs to be banished at every single desk. So you might be doing it, but is everybody whom you're working with also doing it? So a lot of great options there for password managers, LastPass, 1Password, etc. But got to be using one. MFA, multi-factor or two-factor authentication on everything. Andrew just mentioned that as well. Tax software included, got to have it. And not just on your accounts, but all of your contractors and consultants, all of your employees have to have it. Backup regularly and test recovery. This is really interesting. Andrew, I know we wanted to get back to this, and I think now's a good time. You mentioned some of the ransomware is coming in and trying to wait out the backup window. How do we think about that?
It's one of those things, like, some of these malware are just super simple, and it's like, don't click on the thing called virus.exe. And then others, like this malware example, where it can be sitting dormant and outwaiting the backups, or go in and encrypt the backups also, because it's like, well, I keep my backups on the server, and it's like, the server got encrypted, let's use the backup. Well, the backup was encrypted because there was no gap between where the pieces were stored. So, I mean, in a situation like this, what you would need to do is be able to identify what triggered the malware or the ransomware virus to get in there in the first place, and be able to isolate it so when you recover onto the backup files, you can then take it back to the state before it's been deployed and remove it while it's still this just benign file that's sitting there, not doing anything.
Yeah.
And usually if you're dealing with something like that, it's a lot more than like, oh, I clicked delete and now it's gone. Like
There's
we're
another level
talking,
there.
yeah, we're talking extremely surface level here, but that's the concept behind it. But having a gapped backup is so big, because if your backup is where the encryption happens, now you've got backups of these encrypted files you can't use.
Yeah, I get it. So we need to have a strategy. You have to have a quality backup strategy. It's going to address the not obvious. Encrypt laptop hard drives. So how many of us are doing that? How do we know? Firewalls in all offices. I think this is actually becoming firewalls in all remote workplaces too. We're working from home. We have to secure our wireless configurations. So I'm at home. You know, I've had to have people help me make sure that my wireless configuration here was good. Patching, you mentioned that. Educating employees, you mentioned that. And use leading SaaS services for IT functions. So all the leaders have great cloud infrastructure, have great protections around a lot of this stuff. So that's the list. So please take a screenshot of that if that's helpful. Go ahead. You can always talk to Andrew or me with regard to best practices and so forth. Will be resources for you. I also think it's important, we'll just spend a couple of minutes here, but secure technology for all communications has been the state of the art for a full decade now. And what I want to bring to light here is what we're doing in our personal financial lives versus what we're doing with our accountants or with our clients is typically vastly different. So last year, August 5th, 2021, it was reported that 85% of deposits are made digitally at Bank of America. 85% of deposits are made digitally. And Andrew mentioned this before. How we work with our banks is happening in a very, very secure fashion. We're transferring gazillions of dollars back and forth. Banks have made it their business to keep us safe. They give us a great mobile app. They give us a web experience. They're not sending us a bunch of links. They're not asking us to log in a bunch of different places. They're making it direct and simple. This method works. Most Americans are here already, right? The other ones are just going to the bank. But there's not this middle insecure option or middle insecure set of options. So what's happening today, in our view at Liscio, is very simple. The same pattern that works for financial institutions should be followed by accountants, right? When we think about Pub 4557, security should be automatic, which means it should be bidirectional and very, very strong. So what we do is we basically have tailored the experience for accountants, which is biometric login. Client can use their face to log in right from the mobile app. No more passwords. How easy is that for a client? That's what clients want. Clients don't want more passwords, they don't want more logins, but they don't mind using their face, right? Client-facing tasks, keep them organized. Everything is organized and in one place. Give them a document scanner so they don't have to go scan something, put it on their local drive, upload it. That's too hard. They should get a piece of mail or receive anything they want to send you, scan it with their phone. Super, super easy. It shouldn't come to you as some weird image type on a text message or attached to an email. It should just come in as a PDF with all the pages right there in one easy to read file. And they should be able to sign something right with their finger, right from the mobile device or right on the web. So just like Bank of America or Chase, all this can happen on the mobile phone or happen in a web space, but everything, all the tooling is in one single place, right? And so if we can do that, we get a whole bunch of benefits. We can use text messages directly from the software to them, not from your personal phone, not from your team's personal phones, right? Again, keep it all in one place, but still communicate the way your clients want to communicate. Mobile, fast, super efficient when they want it, and then online, super secure, et cetera, when they're on their computer. So scanner again, super easy. And then what if you could send documents directly from whatever software you're using, directly from tax software, directly from financial software such as QuickBooks or Xero? What if you could just hit a button, print directly to a client? That's what we do at Liscio. You can use any software you want and send everything directly through what we call Listio dispatch, and it'll go straight to them. No download, upload stuff. Okay. And because it's all happening in one platform, just like Bank of America, when you call them, there's never any messages that are sitting in an email silo or in a text messaging silo. Bank of America can see everything that's happened with us right from a single screen. You'd get the same benefit by having everything in one place. So no more, oh, so-and-so's on vacation, I can't help you right now. Or can you start by re-explaining everything to me? No more of that. You'll have everything at your fingertips. So security comes with the benefit of ease for clients and time saved for the firms. It all comes together because now you have full visibility, just like Salesforce is fully visible to sales teams, or help desk software is used for support. Listio gives you that same level of transparency. So I know we covered a lot today about security, but I think the whole point here and why Andrew and I wanted to bring you all together was this idea that you can make it really, really easy, right? Technology is here to help. Andrew at Tech for Accountants, he and his team are here to help. We want to make things really simple for you because we understand how you work and how you think. And also, if this is of interest to you, we understand how valuable your time is. We also are going to be making sure for every demo we conduct, Listio is donating 10 nourishing meals to impoverished children. And for every new firm that signs up, we're also providing 30 days of education for children in need. So it's our part of way of giving back. So let's make it easy. Let's do good by one another. And let's keep all of our data and our clients' data really safe. So I know we're right at time. Andrew, I want to thank you for taking a lot of time out of your schedule today. And look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Chris, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. We'll do it again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Great. Bye-bye.
All right.